Well, good morning, everybody, and welcome to today's session from Practical Cybersecurity on Digital Privacy. And our title this morning is a little bit different, Your Digital Doppelganger. Lots of hackers would love to be you. You know, if we've learned anything about digital privacy over the last few years, it's the fact that there are all sorts of people that want all sorts of stuff that we have. And so the question that we have to ask as we walk through life in a digital age is, how do we protect our stuff as best we can? How do we go ahead and keep the things private that should be while letting other folks see the things that should be public and that kind of thing? Well, let's start out by talking about two concepts. And these two concepts actually form a good basis to help us understand what's going on. The first concept when we talk about our digital footprint is to think about the question of our online identity. Now, your online identity is a collection of all that information that represents you on the internet, or some people call it your digital persona. So you might think about your about information on Facebook, or your profile information that you placed out on LinkedIn, or all sorts of things like that to help identify who you are as a person so people can find you and interact with you. But besides your online identity that you have, we also have something called our digital footprint. And that digital footprint is going to be that trail of data you leave behind when you use the internet. So, for example, you go to a certain website, you type in a URL in the web browser. That URL is going to go out to the domain name system and leave a footprint that says a computer with your web address went to this place. Or we might talk about cookies that are left on your computer from some ad that you look, and somebody else is doing digital remarketing, and so they're able to use those cookies to trail back, present you ads for whatever it was that you looked at some time ago. So this difference between your online identity, basically the definition of who you are, and your digital footprint, the trail of breadcrumbs that you leave behind as you go about the internet, is really an important thing to understand. What people don't understand and recognize is that all of this data that you leave behind is important. All of this data is often collected and shared, and I should have added, a lot of times it is sold. So, for example, I'm told that certain DNS providers may turn around and sell the data that's collected on what web searches. We've all seen information online about how the information on where your cell phone goes as it gets to different towers, that data is collected and put together and sold. And so you take all of these parts and pieces of the different data that a person leaves behind as they go about life. The result is that not only is that data often collected and shared and sold, but the other result is that hackers can turn around and use that data to exploit something somehow. Now, there's lots of different ways in which hackers may try to exploit that data, and we'll come back to that in a little bit there. But probably the first question we should ask is, why in the world are you a target? A lot of people say, well, I don't have anything. Why in the world would hackers want to come after me? Or I don't have any money, or I don't have fill in the blank of what it is. Why in the world are you a target? Well, you're a target for a number of reasons. First off, you're a target because hackers want to exploit your identity. Hackers find out who you are, and they recognize that you are a person. You've got different items that come along with being that. And so they're going to try to exploit your identity for a number of different reasons. Sometimes it may be that they want financial gain. I was talking to a bank friend of mine recently, and they were talking about how frequently customers are coming into the bank as they try to be exploited for financial gain, often through some kind of social engineering. So a hacker may call you up, and we've all seen little tricks. Sometimes you get this call that says, that it's a child or a grandchild making money. Or sometimes it'll be something that plays on your sense of needing extra cash, and they'll say, you've been left this big amount of cash if you do that. Or sometimes it's something that plays off of your fear. And they'll say, you have to send us so much money so we can stop this attack from taking over your network. There are 1,001 ways in which social engineering is used to try to exploit you. And not only does it exploit you, but particularly if you're a business, hackers will want to use this first footstep to then move on up into bigger targets so that they get more money or more ransom or what. So no matter who you are, no matter how much it is that you've got, if you've got computer resources, if you've got a digital identity, if you've got an online persona, so to speak, if you do anything and leave breadcrumbs and tracks, you've got folks that are going to be coming after you for a lot of different reasons. These are only a few that you see on the screen right now. There may be more reasons why a person wants to come after you as a hacker. And so the consequences can be absolutely devastating for many people if they find that they have indeed succumbed to this and find out that they have indeed fallen victims to a hacker for one kind or another. Sometimes that consequence of a hacker, that consequence comes in the form of financial fraud. We've all known stories, and I've seen it within my own family. We've all seen stories of people who had finances drained from their bank accounts or taken, and this financial fraud strikes very close to home. One thing that really aggravates me is that many times these hackers will prey on older folks because they know older folks many times aren't as computer savvy. And so as they try to prey on them, they know they've got retirement funds and they will just absolutely mercilessly drain them to try to do it. Sometimes they will use a fake love interest to try to do that. As there's all sorts of, one of the main consequences of abuse is financial fraud. Hackers may also do account takeover. I knew of a case one time where an individual was contacted by hackers, and the hackers talked them into giving their entire financial account information over to the bad guys under the guise that the bad guys were going to protect them from what somebody else was trying to do. And this was a gentleman who had, he had enough money to live on, but he wasn't wealthy. And they mercilessly wanted to take over and do that. Frequently, when hackers take over a business in particular, there's reputational damage. It gets out into the news that your firm has been ransomed and that you find all your data is encrypted and they're holding it for ransom or threat release. You may find out that if you're in healthcare or something else that has PII, that information is threatened and released. What a lot of places don't understand or don't fully comprehend is that this reputational damage, while it's hard to put a dollar value to it, can be enormous and can actually seriously hurt, seriously destroy your business. So besides the financial and account implications, there's also reputational, and once again, if you're a company that works with larger firms, they may use you as a stepping stone to move on up the line to somebody else. So if you got all of these bad folks that are after your stuff, if you got all of this stuff that's coming after you, trying to find some way to take over your stuff and make you a victim of their next fraud, it's good for us if we think about how hackers can work against us. There are new ways being developed every day, but these are some of the most common ways that we see hackers working against it. Frequently, they use some kind of a phishing term. Now, today's world, phishing has taken on all sorts of different forms. But phishing simply means the PH con. It simply means that they're throwing out a net, trying to find out who's going to bite and take the bait, and then become their next victim. Phishing traditionally has been done using email. So you get this email that says, hey, we discovered that your bank accounts are under attack. Please call us and we'll help you protect them. Everybody wants to protect their bank account. Used to be, we always got the emails from the Nigerian prince or whoever that was going to leave us so many millions of dollars that we'd only call and send so much money to get the process started. Phishing, frequently by email, takes lots of form, and it is still effective as you still find people who fall for that if you look at around the world. In today's world, the second term that's taking on a bigger prominence is what's called phishing, which is basically voice phishing. Now, with the advent of AI, that makes phishing even um, more tenable because it's very easy for, with a small snippet of a person's voice, to turn around and create a whole sentence so that when you get somebody on the line, they think that you're that person. So your grandparents, you get a call from somebody claiming to be your grandson. Grandson says, "Hey, Grandma, I've been a wreck. I need money to get out," or whatever. And from Grandma's perspective, because of the use of AI, that voice on the other end sounds extremely like the grandson. It sounds identical to it, as AI can produce this. I got a call one time. I was at my parents' house, and this call came in from a voice who was claiming that they were a grandchild and all that. And the voice, they were trying to claim that the voice didn't sound like it because they had broken their nose in an accident. They had a cold, and with all that, they no longer sounded like themselves. Phishing works, and it particularly works against older folks who want to protect their family. Similar to that is something else called smishing that comes over SMS or text messaging. And as this smishing comes over and you get a text message, once again, text message, Grandma, I need help. Text message, Grandpa, I've been in a wreck. Text message, your account's under attack. Please contact us immediately. All sorts of these forms like that. And while it's tempting to say, why can't we just block the phone numbers they call from? Because of the ease with which you can take a phone number from which you originate, it's virtually impossible to block it. You just can't get it done. We also are seeing more and more web forms, and it seems like from what I'm watching that web forms are coming back into use. They were down for a while, they're back. Web forms can come up. A frequent one you see is one that comes up and says that your computer is under attack. This is Microsoft. Call this number and we'll help you fix it, or some variation of that. And it always costs money, and they always want access to your computer. And then once they do that, who knows what's going to take off from there. And then the old fake documents. Many times this involves paper that actually comes in the mail from somebody, or it may be a PDF that comes online, particularly if it's a PDF. The PDF or other Word document or something will have embedded scripts in it. So you get a document, you think it's from a vendor that you know and that you trust and that you deal with. You open that document and that script runs, and who knows what's going to happen to your computer at that point in time. So fake documents are another form of phishing, and we see this one a lot, particularly against businesses with all that going on. And so as a hacker works against you with phishing, that combined with the social engineering often makes it a very real and very valid and oftentimes difficult to spot threat. Every business has on their website something about who they are and what they do, maybe contact information for key people. You go to LinkedIn and you can find out the contact information for key people, for who they are. And so combining social engineering with the different types of phishing that you see up there often results in success for the bad guys as they want to get some kind of stuff from you. So with everybody arrayed against us and everybody working to try to get into our stuff and take over, how in the world do we go about protecting ourselves in this kind of world? You know, it honestly is really difficult for many people when things are arrayed and so much is done to try to get into our stuff and take over our things. There's a lot of ways we can protect ourselves. And so most important, this one you have heard multiple times. Use strong, unique passwords. That means that the password you use to get into your email is different from the password you use to get into your bank account, which is different from the password you use to get into your IRA accounts, which is different from the password you use to get into Facebook. Strong, unique passwords. Strong meaning there's complexity, uppercase, lowercase, numbers, and special characters. Strong meaning also that it is long. Nowadays, 16 is kind of the minimum number of characters you should have, and really you're better off to do it larger. If we had to remember all that on our own, that would be virtually impossible. So password managers help us out. Your browsers now all have password managers built in that are really good. If you're in some kind of a business and need some kind of a password manager for a corporate environment, there's a number of good choices that you do that. If you find it difficult to remember passwords or want to remember stuff you don't want to write down, it's always good to use passphrases. So you might choose 2 or 3 words that are unrelated, mix in some numbers and special characters and make a passphrase. Well, the favorite one comes from a comic strip, and you use a donkey, battery, and numbers and an exclamation. And that's a good way to do it. You can find on the internet passphrase generators that will pick 2 or 3 random words, let you put them together into a package and create your own special password. Well, that's good. But passwords alone aren't going to do the job. That's why nowadays virtually everybody talks about having multi-factor authentication. And virtually everybody, while multi-factor authentication is good, does a great job and stops, I think I read last 95% of the attacks. It is really good. Multi-factor authentication takes time. You get several different variations. Probably the most common are multi-factor authentication, where you've got some kind of an authenticator on your phone. And then when you go to the website, you enter username, password, and then ask for a code. That can come through an authenticator app on your phone. Sometimes, rather than doing it by the authenticator app, the website may choose to send email with the code to you, or it may choose to send a text message to you with the code there. Whatever you're doing, and I know there's all the arguments about which one of these different types of multi-factor authentication are best. From my perspective, anything's better than nothing. So if you prefer text message or text multi-factor authentication, do it. Just set up MFA on everything that you possibly can. Do it. And by the way, from use over a long time, using the authenticators on your phone is not onerous. It's not too hard to do. Well, besides using strong, unique passwords and using multi-factor authentication, stay alert for phishing. Learn to spot suspicious stuff. So if email comes from somebody in a foreign country that claims they left so many $1 million with a lawyer and wherever that they're waiting for you to call, that's an alert, particularly if you didn't know somebody. If the spelling is off and doesn't sound like it is in good English or flowing language, that's something to look at. Watch out for the emails. I knew somebody who received some phishing attempts, and they simply changed how the email address, the domain was a little bit. They'd actually gone and registered in the domain just to try to attack this particular company. Stay alert for phishing and learn how to spot. That's going to get harder with AI as things become crafted better, but learn how to spot them. Then the last thing, probably just a very basic one, remember to keep your software updated. Now, I've known of businesses who didn't want to put any updates on their computers because they said, we don't want anything to change. Therefore, they went for 80s. And I know of one in particular that had personally identifiable information and refused to put updates on, and it was an absolute mess. Updating your software is likewise one of the very big things you can do. For example, if you end up succumbing to a phishing attack, it comes with a script within a PDF document or a Word document. You accidentally click on that so that the document tries to open and the script runs. Many times your updated software, if you have it updated, will stop those things from happening, as that's another barrier to put in place of the bad guys. Note, we are just a short time away from end of life for Windows 10. Windows 10 end of life comes in the middle of October. And after that, what that means is that while Windows 10 will continue to function, Microsoft will no longer put out any security updates or any security patches for you. That's a big deal because you can bet that the bad guys are stockpiling Windows 10 zero-day exploits right now. So as soon as Microsoft quits putting in updates, you can guarantee they're going to be using these to try to attack. So what do? Well, you've got a couple of options. If you are determined to keep Windows 10 for another year, it is possible for you to pay a fairly small amount of money to get security updates for another year for your box. For personal machines, it's either going to be at least $30, $31, something like that. You can get it for free with certain Bing reward points or using certain backup features on your computer. So if you're a personal computer, you can get that relatively inexpensively. If you're in a business environment, you can get updates for Windows 10 machine for another year by simply adding in a little license. There'll be, I think, $65, roughly 60 some dollars that will let you do it. The second year, that price is going to double. The third year, it'll double after that. And after that, there's no more updates available for Windows 10 whatsoever. So I'd encourage you, Windows 11 has been out for several years. We use it here in our environment. Go ahead and update. Likewise, remember to keep your Linux boxes, other Windows versions, your Androids or your iPhones updated, as well as keep your applications updated. All of these things are additional vectors that bad guys try to use to get into your stuff. Then some additional tips that we just kind of picked up over the years. These you've probably heard many times. I'd like to throw out some additional things. Okay, in today's world, we would all like to think that our personal information, our social security number, our credit cards, our bank account ID, those things are all private. But in reality, in today's world, your credit cards, your username, many of these things, your birthday, your social security number, many of these things have likely already been leaked in a breach. So whether we want to admit it or not, that this information is probably already out there. So we should shift we should still try to protect our information, don't get me wrong, but we should also be defensive on protecting our stuff they might be trying to get into. For example, from the standpoint that our stuff is probably already out there, I would definitely encourage people to freeze your credit, to monitor your credit accounts. You can do this through the three major reporting agencies, to put alerts on any of your bank accounts or your credit card information itself, any savings accounts, any brokerage accounts, all that, so that you know if somebody else is trying to get into your stuff and you don't expect it. It is quite likely that you want to use some of the identity monitoring services that are out there. There are some of them, like LifeLock's probably one of the most well known, that will help monitor your identity and help you recover if something happens and your stuff is compromised. Besides monitoring your identity, it would also be good to limit oversharing on social media. Okay, so I know we all think that when we put something out on social media, in our mind, we only have in mind that our few friends are going to be the only ones to see it. So we post it on Facebook or we post it on wherever. I was teaching a class one time and just came across this very thing. And there was an individual, a student, college student in class, who had posted a bunch of stuff that was way, personal, thinking that only their closest friends were the only ones that saw it. And I was able to demonstrate how, because of the way they had their settings set on their social media account, that anybody, any place was able to see it. They were absolutely horrified to realize that they were putting stuff out there for anybody to see, including folks that they absolutely did not want to see it. It's good to limit social oversharing on social media. Just because you can put it on there doesn't necessarily mean you should. Likewise, monitor your financial accounts. I make it a practice to check my financial accounts daily, so that if something happens and somebody does get in there and money is taken out without my approval, I'm able to immediately get on with my bank and stop it. I don't want this kind of stuff to go on. And then more more tips, more insight on this, we found a good website called StaySafeOnline.org. If you've got family members, if you've got coworkers, if you've got parents or somebody who needs good information, possibly from somebody other than you, to help them understand the importance of staying safe. Stay Safe Online is a very good website with a lot of very good information on how to protect yourself in today's online world. Well, I know we've covered a lot. If you would like to talk more about this subject, you can see how to get a hold of us at the screen in front of you. Phone number, feel free to call, email us, drop by our website, whatever. Likewise, you have the ability to get a one-page handout, a summary handout of this at the URL on your screen. Maybe good, something you can use with your business or your parents or your social circle, whatever like that. And then don't forget that you've got replays of this webinar available on YouTube at the location shown. Well, for all of you here, thank you very much for coming. You guys online watch it later. Thanks so much for taking the time. Feel free to get in touch. We'd love to chat with you about how to be digitally secure in today's online environment. Thanks for coming.